welcome, Dustin. Thank you for agreeing to do this for me.
Yeah, thank you.
So, hi everyone. Welcome to Off the Cuff, episode 6, which I am posting today itself. So, you're going to have a double dose of the series. I have with me Dustin Grinnell, who is a American fiction writer. He's also an essayist and a freelance journalist. So, he keeps on wearing a lot of hats. And the intriguing part about his writing is that he tries to blend science fiction with a lot of emotions. And that is my hook. That is what intrigued me, and I wanted to talk to him about this scenario. So, Justin, my first question to you will be, when you are writing science plots, especially things that are dealing with science, what made you think that bringing a blending emotion in that would cater to the right audience, or would satisfy the people seeking some sort of emotional connect with the plots that you hold?
Well, I think it's really like a preference for me to explore how technology and our scientific advancements impact our emotional lives,
Mhm.
impact our psychology, more so than anything else, more so than like the economic effects. I'm really interested in, so, what happens if we have like really sophisticated artificial intelligence? Will people become friends with it? Will people uh, fall in love with it? And, what are the implications there? Of course, there'll be like major societal changes, but like, what are the implications for the individual? Um, and I think I like exploring those types of unintended consequences. And I think it was like the 2010s where I really, this interest in exploring the emotional impacts of technology was really turbocharged with with like TV shows like Black Mirror,
Mhm.
movies like Her, Interstellar, Arrival, Ex Machina. These were really like human beings being impacted in pretty profound ways by
Technology.
fictional
Yes.
technologies. And I realized I was already doing that in a way, but
Yeah.
now I'm sort of doubling down and saying like, yeah, that's I think the lane that I want to be in.
So, what is your relation like with technology, like with AI coming in and taking over the writing process as well? You try to define the relationship between the characters and the scenarios that they are in. But what is your relationship like? Do you prefer technology?
Yeah, um, I I wouldn't call myself like the first person to try out a new technology, but I'm also not a luddite. I'm not anti-technology. So when ChatGPT came into the world, I embraced it and use it in my workflow, my full-time job as doing commercial corporate writing, and even in some of my creative writing, I'll use it to maybe untangle like a sentence I'm having trouble with. I use it a lot for research, um, and so like for example, I'm working on a book now, science fiction book, and I wanted to know how you could potentially miniaturize human beings, so that they could become so small that they could like fit inside a small submarine that goes through the human body. So that's the premise for the book I'm working on now. And traditionally, I would do a lot of reading. I would read scientific journals. I would poke around the internet. I would maybe even interview people. But now with ChatGPT, it sort of accelerated the research process. So I can use it to ideate. So I can say, you know, help me imagine this speculative world.
Okay. Yeah.
What technology that exists today could potentially make that realistic? And it just spits back like half a dozen possibilities,
Mhm.
and I'll sort of dig into it and see which one works for me. So that's how I have been using at least large language learning models for now.
But I think we both of us can call it ethical, because there are debates going on about how can you differentiate or draw a thin line between something being ethically used and something being overused. So as writers, I think both of us, and in fact all of us, face that battle continuously. deciding whether to turn to technology for help is beneficial or not. But the way you put it, to take or ideate only taking help from ChatGPT or any other software or app for that matter, that I think helps in the creative flow as well.
Yeah, I think the ethics of it are like, don't use ChatGPT to compose.
Yes.
You know, like I don't say, hey, can you write this scene for me? I don't say, can you finish this ending? I I write it first, and then I'll maybe ask to like punch up like a few lines.
Yes,
Um,
improvement.
it, yeah, like I never say write 500 words of prose.
Uh-huh.
Because that's when it really would start to get weird. You know, I don't. I still want to be creative. I still want them to be my ideas,
Mhm.
and I still want to be the author. So if I start to have it write for me, um, I've gone into a place I don't really want to
You
go
want to
into.
be right, right. When your first book, when I read that, the healing book, you see, when I came across the title, it had a different vibe. It was more like a non-fiction book that would help someone help someone in personal growth or some sort of healing. That's the vibe. The first look or the titles was suggestive, but it came as a pleasant surprise when I delved into the stories, because each of the characters find their own ways to cope with certain circumstances. So I wanted to know, has there been an event where you tried to cope with situation in a very unconventional way?
Hmm. I don't know. I mean, a lot of those stories are people in crisis, trying to deal with situations that are emotionally difficult. You have like a sister trying to deal with the death of her sister. You have a husband who's trying to cure his wife's cancer. Um, you have a man who's kind of losing himself in the depths of his own
Yes.
mind through a virtual technology. Those are all speculative stories. Um, so yeah, I'm not. I think it's most of those stories are science fiction. So I'm not sure right now if I have a good answer to your question, to be honest.
Have you been in a crisis situation, not related to your personal life, but when it comes to writing, did you find any sort of difficulty when you just started writing? Or was it free flowing and quite natural for you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've gone through different evolutions in my writing. Maybe the biggest one was like starting to write fiction. I started with outlines. I would, very create very detailed outlines.
Mhm.
But I ended up getting an MFA in creative writing 5 years ago, and during that process of reading more literary works, more literary science fiction, I started to change my process a little bit. So now I just sort of write by the seat of my pants a lot more
Okay.
versus plotting. And I find it brought like a lot more joy back to the writing because it involves a lot of discovery. It's
Yes.
kind of like I'm not really sure where I'm going right now. And all the short stories in the healing book, there's 13 of them.
Yes.
Those were all written by the seat of my pants. Like I started some of them on my phone even, and I would just let it rip and see where it goes. And with a short story, you can write like in some cases you can write the whole thing in a day.
Yes.
And it needs like dramatic, revision. But I really, yeah, it felt very uncomfortable to write without knowing where I was going. But now I don't think I'd really do it any other way. It's more fun, and you get to surprise yourself. And like, why else would you want to do it? It's writing a book can be like a miserable experience, and
Yes.
it can take years. So like, you might as well pick a process that feels enjoyable to you. So that, yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think one should be satisfied. Do you write for your readers or do you write for yourself? Whom do you prioritize first?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like um, you know, I usually get hooked on an idea, and I think to myself, this is pretty interesting territory to explore. For example, the book I'm working on now, it's about, you know, people who go into the human body in these like miniaturized submarines,
Mhm.
like a much like the TV show Magic School Bus and the book, the movie Fantastic Voyage. But I think that to me was like a good premise. Like I wanted to explore that
Okay.
concept, and so that's how I get into it. And then after that, like it's all about the reader. You know, it's like, is this entertaining? Is this readable? Does this keep making you turn pages? Is this accessible? You know, can you explain complex scientific topics in like a easy to read way? So yeah, it's me. Okay, so me first, and then reader second. But don't ever forget about the reader experience because yeah, like you have to delight them and inform them and inspire them and try to do it in a non-cliched way. And yeah,
So basically, the inception stage relies on how you want things to turn out, but eventual outcome, the final product, is all based on the preferences and what the readers would like to see and read.
yeah. And part of it's like, you know, with there's always like genre expectations. You know, in a romantic story, you have to have like a meet cute, and then you have to prolong the kiss as long as possible, and then they get together, but it's in a way you didn't expect. Those are, if you don't hit those beats, the reader will be disappointed. So, and an editor won't let you miss those beats. So, with science fiction, there's a lot of genre expectations too.
Correct.
So, you want to hit those. You have to hit those because, you know, it's the, you know, genre you're working in.
Mhm.
So I make sure to do them as much as I can, but do them in an unexpected way, in a way that kind of like surprises me.
That's nice. I think this, though, one should know where to let the ropes be a little loose. On that note, your healing book, or it's not healing book, as other than that, I checked out your website and I got to know a little more about you. So you have been writing a lot about the van lifers. So have you had a personal experience of living out of a suitcase and being in a van?
No, I I want to. I would like to. It would fit my personality. But I just haven't done it. And I'm not entirely sure why. I think part of it is that to write, like I've prioritized fiction and creative writing, essays and things. And you really, at least for me, I need to have like a routine and I need to have like stability
Okay.
and frankly have a full-time job in order to like pay for it all. Um, so like I think getting into a van and driving around the country, while that would be, man, that would really fit my adventurous spirit. I almost wonder if it would just compromise me in terms of being able to stay in a writing routine.
Yes.
So I think that is the barrier, for better or for worse. I sort of picked my creative life, the stability of my creative life over that very real urge to just hit the road, you
So
know?
at least that's one point that I'm able to uncover that as a writer, this is one of your hidden desires that you want to pursue. But somehow your characters are depicted them beautifully because you not only talk about the van lifers, you also talk about the nomadic lifestyle. And you were absolutely right because I can understand when you say that a stable job is very, very important. At the same time, writing is not the profession where writers can rely on, especially if we don't come from a very flamboyant and posh background kind of thing. So, other than that, you also mention or you also have in your profile that you are an essays, and your typical essays range from writing about societal themes, a lot of themes that are very openly discussed. So, my question now is: has there been a theme that you wanted to explore and tread into those uncharted territories, but you were slightly hesitant or rather not very open to the idea to do it publicly?
Yeah, let me answer that question in 1 second. Let me let my cat out
Okay.
out the
Sure.
door because I don't know if you can hear her, but she's going kind of crazy. Sorry about that. Yeah, the answer to your question. I don't know if you you tell me, in the healing book, 13 short stories, there are a lot of scenes that revolve around the workplace. I don't know if you've noticed that,
Yes.
in particularly like traditional office settings, and in corporate America. And so there are like some characters who are dissatisfied
Yes.
with working in corporate America, and it's like no surprise that a creative person is writing stories about characters like railing against the, you know, the strict, almost authoritarian, settings of corporate America. So that comes up a lot, and I think they reflect my own experience of like
Okay.
being in these settings. Yeah, being in these settings where it's just like deeply bureaucratic,
Mm.
um, very conformist. As much as possible, like suppressing individuality, and um, there's almost like I've seen in corporate settings almost like a Kafka-esque, you know, like, existence where you try to do something and it goes wrong, and you don't even know why. Good deeds go unpunished, and it's like, I think as much as I could, I wanted to like call out the indignities
Mhm.
people suffer in the office, because they're there, man. It's a tough
Yes, fine.
spot for the human spirit.
Yeah, I get that. Like existing merely as caricatures, not getting that creative expression. It's basically work-life balance in a different way. It's it's balance between expression, freedom to express yourself, and then being limited within the bounds that the corporate world is offering. So somewhere there is a suppression of identity.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm one of those, rare, annoying, workers who doesn't really put a face on. Uh, Actually, Kafka said something like, "I was ashamed when I realized that everyone was wearing a mask, and I attended life with my real face." Um, and I think I do that at work, and people kind of sometimes think it's unprofessional, but really I'm just trying to be real. I don't need to have this like elevated,
Filtered face.
robotic.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not necessary to me. Um, and so I find that, uh, people just think it's like not, it doesn't compute for them.
It's
And
very,
it's
very
totally good.
surprising somehow. This conversation was, I thought that I would delve deeper into your travels and how you got into this process of writing. But somewhere I'm able to join the dots because you are quite keen on mentioning how real face works, and then these filters and these pretentious acts that we have to do in front of public. All these are just there to just make an attempt to fit in. But somewhere your books also resonate your personality a lot, because I was intriguely struck by this idea of blending empathy, especially empathy, and each of your characters exude this empathy. So, trying to find out that kind of balance through writing, because this is something that not everybody will be speaking about. This is not, maybe not many people are going to talk about how we should be real, and with of course with technology coming in and with so many alternatives available, I think each one of us has that kind of mask. So with that, reading your book made me feel one thing. I wondered how come you were stressing so much about the human connection, the genuine bond that each one of us should have with each other. So, can you tell me a little more about the Empathy Academy? Because I think Healing book was just a stepping stone. But now you have a full-fledged book on Empathy Academy. So, what is so special about that? I haven't started reading it yet.
Yeah. It's okay. Uh, so right, it's like I want to tell like a science fiction story, a science-based story where technology and science is at the heart of it, or more, it's like the foundation. But actually, at the core of it, I want it to be about human beings. I want it to be about a father and a son. That's what the Empathy Academy is about. So the high concept, the premise is, tinkering with people's genes,
Mm.
who, have a predisposition to acting a certain way. So what if we can change their genes and to change their conduct or behavior? Um, but at the heart of the story, it's really like it's a young kid who's like 18 years old, and he's trying to find himself, and he's trying to like figure out his relationship with his father, who has been involved in a scandal, um, and he's trying to figure out how far does the apple fall far from the tree. Like if my dad acted this way, to what degree will I act this way? How much of there is there a genetic component? How much is there like an emotional inheritance? So he's really trying to grapple with, the crimes that his father has created. So it's a science-based world. It's a speculative world, but it's really about father and son. And I mentioned before movies like Interstellar and Her and Ex
Mhm.
Machina. Interstellar is the same thing.
Same.
It's
Yes.
it's an incredibly imaginative story about space travel and humans looking for a habitable planet, but it's really about a father who has
Mrs.
this,
Singh.
yeah, like
Mrs. Singh, his
has to
daughter.
see his
Yeah.
daughter and come back. And I think that's the heart of the story. And that's what I kind of call sci-fi with heart.
Yes.
It's like it's science fiction, but man, it's really exploring like what would interstellar space travel do to human beings? What would it do to families? What would it do to a father and a son? What if we dramatized Einstein's equations?
Yeah.
What if we showed, Matthew McConaughey's character, um, they spend time at objects that are quite massive, so they slow time down relative to people on Earth. And so, you get to see in a fictional world a father aging way slower than a daughter. And so you get to ask this philosophical question, like, so what happens if they come back together and you have a 35-year-old
Mm.
dad interacting with a 90-year-old daughter? Like, so what are the emotional consequences of that? you know and you see it play out because he's so desperate to get home. He's
Yes.
so desperate to do his duties very quickly so that they don't lose time, because he knows that, um, he's, with every minute he
Yes.
loses time with her. Yeah, so that's kind of like what I like to explore, what the heart in these sci-fi worlds.
So when you say you like to explore, because I can see that passion when you're talking about it, because see, I have also watched these movies and I have become very interested in this idea of conflicted relationships, not really conflicts arising because of the dynamics, but because of other factors that are beyond control. But never really I have thought that I could go to these lens to explore the emotions that might be stirring within the heart. So, have you ever thought of pursuing behavioral psychology, or did you always wanted to explore these themes through writing?
Yeah. My When I was in college, I studied psychobiology.
Okay, comes
So it's
from
kind
there.
of, yeah. And when I was a kid, I loved reading popular science books. I read a lot of like nonfiction
Okay,
science books on psychology, and so yeah, I've always been really interested in psychology. And then, yeah, it's like it's going to be the subject matter that I
yes,
gravitate towards. Yeah.
that's nice. Okay, this one will be my last one. I wanted to talk to you about your podcast, Curiously. The name is fabulous. And you have been having some really. I tried to check out your Instagram. I literally stalked you. So I found out some very diverse themes being spoken about. So, has there been an episode, or out of the ones that you have posted, has there been a moment that translated into something else, and you took out a lot, or you took away a lot of information or learning from that episode?
Yeah. One of like my, I think my favorite type of guest is are scientists.
Yes.
Trying to like understand why they do what they do, what their vision is for their work. And what drives a scientific mind, and it's always curiosity. They always say it's curiosity. Um, and I think there's like we're kindred spirits because I'm very curious myself. But I just wasn't a very good scientist. So it kind of like works. But one of my favorite episodes was I asked a Tufts professor of biomedical engineering
Mm-hmm.
to come on the show to talk about the science behind science films. So we talked about Jurassic Park and the movie Never Let Me Go. And, with Jurassic Park, where I'm asking her a question because she teaches a class on this. It's sort of like the science of sci-fi, like
Oh.
how much of it is realistic. And it was pretty cool. Like just trying to think, just asking her as a biomedical engineer to tell us, is this realistic? Could we realistically pull genetic material out of amber and revive dinosaurs? And she had a lot to say about that, and one of which is you really can't because the DNA would be so degraded. And we also talked about Never Let Me Go, like which is also a great work of literary science fiction. It's like, so if we build these clones and we create them just so we can harvest their organs, if we age and our kidney fails, we can just call on our clone. We sacrifice the clone and then pull the kidney out. Or in some cases, we just pull the kidney out while they're living. But what's beautiful about that story, it's told from the perspective of the clones. So, and we talked about organ transplantation and is that ethical? And this is what the sci-fi writer does. Let's tell that story from the clone's perspective, so that we can understand that they're not that much different than us.
Right.
In fact, they are almost identical. They have human-like consciousness. So maybe we should think about treating them similarly. And I think that was one of my favorite conversations because it was like philosophy, ethics, science, and movies.
And several of your, the themes that are quite central and precious to you were also spoken about. Yeah, it sounds nice. Is this one there on your profile, the one that you spoke about the biomedical scientist?
I think it might be there somewhere. I'm not sure if I posted it on my social media, but it's somewhere around episode 7 or 8, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's all. Yeah. Curiously, I'll check it out because I did check, but I did not find this one for sure.
Okay. Yeah, check it out. And I just go where my curiosity takes me. If someone's doing something cool and if they're passionate about it, and I'll just reach out. I'll just say, do you want to talk for an hour? And almost always they say yes. And in some cases, I use some of the conversation or the insights gained from it in my own work. I recently did that where I asked a biochemist who studies the compounds in medicinal plants, Chinese herbs.
Yeah.
I asked him about his work, and he's using sophisticated technology to understand why do these medicinal herbs work mechanistically, scientifically. And my book that I previously wrote for the one I'm working on now, it's entirely based on that idea. It's entirely based on characters going to search for plants in China that may have medicinal properties because a desperate wife is looking for a cure for her husband. So another good example of yes, it's about the science, it's about botanical remedies,
but at the same
but it's really about
art.
it's about trying to save your husband, your dying husband. Yeah.
That's like first-hand experience. So you, even if you do the research, you get it from the horse's mouth what exactly should be there in the plot, so that you can avoid as many plot holes as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Like your work is going to get uh, quality controlled by all your readers, so it's got to be accurate. It's got to be realistic to some degree. You know, it's got to be you have to make the argument. You have to make the science plausible.
Yes.
You know, like, but but other than that, it's the science fiction that I like is less fantastical. It's not sci-fi fantasy. It's somewhere between like hard and soft sci-fi. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is near future technology. You know, and that's I just think it's more like accessible, and in some cases it's scarier because it's like, oh, this could, like, every Black Mirror episode could happen like pretty soon, if not now. So I just think it's more entertaining and
It is.
more of a caution. Yeah.
Yeah. That was amazing. I had some very insightful discussion with you. So, Dustin, thank you so much for joining me and agreeing to do this. And I wish you luck for the upcoming book. And I shall be updating the review very, very soon about for your new book. That's all
Thank
from
you
my
so
end. Yeah.
Take it easy.
Thank you so much. And you have a lovely day ahead.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.